Evening, how are we all doing? Oh no, I don't think we'll finish the shuttle tonight. There's still a lot of work to do. Yeah, we've got to do the whole interior, got to do all the pipe work and the tanks and everything, get all that done, model the engines, get the UI screens embedded into the display. Yeah, there's still a lot of work to do. But first, we have a competition to do, because it is the first stream of the month. So if Claire would like to signal her readiness, then we shall proceed. Okay then. So we've got 1 captain rank to give away, thanks to AJ, and 3 dev build keys. Let me just sort that out a minute, make sure they're all lined up. That all seem good. Right then. So we'll do the captain rank first, and then we'll do the keys. So the first captain rank goes to 3484. Oh, I'll tell you what, I'll put that on so you can see it, shall I? That helps. And that is Space Doggo. Congratulations, you are now a captain. And next up, we'll do the dev build keys when Claire signals the all okay. Okay, so our first key goes to 2742. And that is Husky Huskies. Congratulations. Have a key. That's true, actually. Yeah, 2 dog-themed names. And our next dog-themed key goes to 9238. How much of a coincidence would it be if this is a dog-themed name? Talanu. It could be a dog name, maybe. Congratulations. Have a key. And the final key, 9134. Shard. Congratulations. There we go. Nice and quick tonight. Well done all. Claire will be pinging you on Discord and distributing your things as needed. All right, get rid of that. Okay. So over the past couple of days, I've finished the server system. So that whole system where we take the ship's hardware, we give it an intermediate management layer in in-game servers, and then we have the UI and NPC layer on top. All that's now working end to end and is replicated. So the one thing I just wanted to test is whether or not the NPC can react to their screen being turned off. So I'm hoping we shall see them put some announcements in the chat if we remove power to their console. I have to forgive the in-editor loading speed. It does take a bit longer. So the power guy specifically said his console had lost power. That'll be because the console was off, I suspect, when he spawned in. So if we turn it off, they shouldn't say it twice in a row. Okay, so if we turn that back on, hopefully he'll respond to say it's back on again. Anything? Anything? Okay, that's going to need looking at then. Yeah, so what should be happening is we are now running an announcements layer before we go ahead and do the NPC logic. So we want to capture whether there's any proactive things they want to do. So first of all, we check to see whether or not they need to say anything, make an announcement to the bridge, and then we check to see whether there's any proactive tasks they need doing, and then they'll get on with their day job. So we can step in front of their logic and get them to do things proactively. So what they should be doing here, and I need to rename these variables because they're a bit confusing, but we get the state of their connected UI, and they now know which UI is theirs, so they're assigned a UI essentially. So what this actually means is, should I announce? So if they should announce that their screen is powered, then they say so, and then they basically disable that particular flag so that it doesn't keep saying my screen is powered over and over and over. And it triggers readiness for the screen being unpowered, and vice versa if the screen's off. So they should only ever say it once if it turns off and on. But obviously some things are gone awry with their detection there, so I need to dig into that and find out what's going on. But yeah, so that's the general idea. So their logic will also be gated behind their screen being on or off. So if the screen is off, they can no longer work, in the same way that a player could no longer work if the screen is off. And then they'll obviously vocalize their issues as they occur. And then in addition to that, we've also got announcement triggers for various tank states. You probably can't see that behind my face. Hang on. Yes, so at various stages of tank fill, they will announce how much fill remains in those tanks. And again, they should only say it once as it passes the boundary. So we'll be enabling and disabling the announcement triggers as the tank fills up or drains. So that should be the NPC able to verbalize what's going on and basically announce to the bridge at large when the ship's about to run out of fuel. Plus they'll give you the countdown as well, just so you know what's going on. At the same time, the next step is then to get the NPC captain to stop what he's doing and order the ship to refuel. Find a gas giant, refuel the ship, and then continue with whatever they were doing. And that should be it. That should be all the logic done that we wanted to do for the demo update. So those are the last two things remaining. Beyond that, it's just finishing off the new tutorials and getting the VR build polished. And that's it. And then we can put the demo out. And fix lots of bugs, obviously. Yes, if you type /refuel in the chat, it will give you some fuel. Although it sets the fuel tanks to 10%. Whether you've got full tanks or not, it just sets them to 10%. So we added that as a, whilst the NPC is not proactively refilling the ship, that's kind of like an emergency help. We shall be removing that once everything's running properly. More than enough to warp here. You'll probably have to restart the reactor, but yeah, more than enough fuel to get to a gas giant. Okay, but I shall leave that for tonight, because that's a head scratcher I need to go and scratch my head on, and we shall carry on with what we were doing with our shuttle. I shall pop myself back in the corner. So I was thinking about what we were doing with these tanks, and the more I thought about it, the less it made sense to have these kind of tanks built the way they are into the wings, because really, if we're storing cryogenic fluids as our fuel, then they kind of need to be COPVs, composite overwrapped pressure vessels, rather than these weirdly shaped tanks, because these oddly shaped tanks are not going to be very resilient to high pressured storage, which is what we need. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the cavity that we have in the floor for storing all the COPVs, because we can just have some nice big long ones in there, and we'll use the wings instead for things like batteries and capacitors, because if we store the capacitors in the wings, then we can have like heat sinks on the outside there. Just gives it a little bit of surface detail that we can add, and yeah, it makes more sensible use of that space, rather than trying to make funky shaped fuel tanks. And that also frees up a little bit more horizontal space here for actual machinery. So carrying on from Sunday's stream, we really need to have a think about where we want to put the all the thrusters. Obviously we've got our braking thrusters in there now, so they can stay where they are. That's a decent enough position for them. Obviously the main engines are there. Yeah, so we need maybe like a little RCS quad there. We need some VTOL thrusters underneath, and I guess we need to sacrifice some of this nose cone volume for that. And we've got enough room here to have a thruster pointing down, so that works. And then maybe two at an angle in the nose. That should give us our landing thrusters, basically. Yeah, and then it's just a matter of working out where we're going to put the RCS. Obviously we're going to have some either side of the nose, but the rear ones are awkward because we've got the little stubby wings, so we need something going sideways from here. I guess we don't need to worry about forward so much because we've got these ones. We can use those. Thanks, Jim. Yeah, it's just so we know that our center of mass line is in line with the engines, so we've already kind of got that nailed. So we want the forward and rear RCS to kind of be balanced around that midpoint there. So what I might do actually is stick in some placeholders and actually move it into engine and actually position the thrusters themselves, and we'll see how it handles. As long as it's balanced around its center of mass, we should be all right. This is the interesting thing about building it in such a real way with real thrusters. We actually have handling and center of mass as it's a factor. It's a variable in where you put things. We can't just put things where we think they'll look pretty. They actually have to serve a purpose. Right, let's grab a random cube. Yeah, so sideways is going to have to come from up here, because I guess it needs to have clearance above the wing. And up is easy because we can just thrust up from there. We'll have to have an opposing down RCS thruster, kind of adjacent to the landing thruster. And then up's kind of awkward in the front here because we don't have much nose that's facing up, so that might have to be kind of up at an angle. Though, to be honest, they could all be up at an angle. Yeah, so if we do up, down, and to the side, kind of around there. And then we've got up and sideways there. And then down's going to have to be under there. I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference that they're vertically offset as long as they're the same distance away from the center of mass, it should still thrust up in a straight line. But we'll kind of have to prove that by experimenting with it. Yeah, and if necessary, if we wanted to have RCS only movement without actually using the engines, then we can have another thruster there, basically, just above the main engines. There's definitely enough room for it. And we could maybe move those over a bit, turn that into a bit of a RCS quad there. Actually, the issue with having them up there is that's actually above the center of mass. So if we thrust forward from that point, it is going to cause the ship to kind of nose down a little bit. So really, they'd have to be either there or on the other side, just to keep them in balance with that. And the same if we were to have an RCS forward, which was separate from that braking thruster, which I'm kind of leaning towards doing. It's going to have to be kind of there, and also, again, it has to be balanced with that. So that gives us 2 sideways, that side, same on the other side. Gives us 2 in the nose going forwards, 2 in the rear going backwards. Yeah, then that one and that one would be roll control, along with those 2. Let's plug some of those in on our test map. Before we do, we need to make sure that this is exported using its actual center of mass. Because right now it's not. So that has to align with that. Basically, the world origin has to match the center of mass when we export the mesh, otherwise it won't be aligned. And then just to confirm, that should be exactly halfway to there, which it is. So if we say 290 to there, and then on this side, 290 is going to be more back here. Which means our center of mass is there. If we go 290 that way, comes out there. So if we wanted to move the ones in the nose forward, we'd have to move these ones forward as well. So if we wanted that in the middle of there, that means they'd have to go further to there. Which is 305 and 275, right, so we need to move our center of mass over, basically. So we need to line that up with what we just added. Doesn't help that there's other geometry in the way. Let's make this easier for ourselves. It's there. So just make sure it's measured. So 2.9 meters and 2.9 meters. Okay, so move our center of mass to there. And then also means we then have to move this to line that up there. So basically we've now got our center of mass balanced around kind of the average point of where we'd want to put the RCS. So awkwardly, the forward one and the sideways one both need to be in line with that, which means the upwards facing one's going to have to be quite close to the window frame. Let's try it and see. We'll use our test map for this. I've parked a bunch of shuttles in the shuttle bay, by the way. I was interested in just how many we could fit in there. And there was more than I was expecting, to be perfectly honest. We can fit 12 shuttles in quite comfortably. Probably a bit more than that. Granted, these ones are very much the smallest ones that the game will have. But yeah, I'm sure we can fit quite a few bigger ones as well. Oh, I should have subdivided that before exporting. Let me just do that real quick. that should be quite nice there once we've got the framing around it. And oh, I forgot to move that across. Yeah, we'll get like a sleeve inserted into there with all the detailing on it. That should look quite good. Right, so thrusters. So we load our test map. Yeah, not too long, hopefully, Firstus. I just need to get it polished up and working smoothly, and then I can pop the build out. Okay, so what I need to do is take all these little thrusters and pop them around where we're actually going to use them, and then we'll have a look at the handling and see how it actually feels to fly. But we're going to have to make a couple of new thrusters as well. Right, so that was our forward one, which should be positioned around the origin there, and we wanted it to be 2.9 meters forward. So that one as well needs to be 2.9 meters forward. And that's the aft one, again, 2.9 meters away. Although these ones specifically don't need to be balanced around the center of mass, forward or back, because that's the direction they're thrusting. So they shouldn't cause any offset thrust. So in fact, these ones can be a little bit further back. If we say 325 and 325, it's just important that they're the same distance from the middle horizontally. So 1.7 meters and 1.7 meters. And the same here, so 1 meter away and 1 meter away. As long as they're balanced, it should be good. Right, what's that one? So that's forward, starboard, up. So that needs to come over here. So we want it to be 2.9 meters that way. And then what we're going to have to do with these ones in particular is actually rotate them like that. So they still have the effect of lifting the nose up and down, but they're going to be tilted out, which means that one's going to have to do the same. So 2.9 meters that way. Let's say 15 above the center of mass. And then how far were we? 95. Okay. So that one's done, that one's done. Okay, so forward port, so that's the one that's firing sideways. Yeah, so in all honesty, we can move that one there forward a bit. So that can go like in there. And then that one can go there for our sideways movement. So forward, starboard, down. So that's going to be that one. So we'll do a similar thing where we will angle it out at 60 degrees that way, or 30. Yeah, 30. So minus 290. That one was 95, so I'll put it in the same spot. And then I think it was 15, wasn't it? Yeah. So that one will thrust that way. So minus 290, minus 15, 95. And rotate. Okay, so that should handle, I think, pretty much all of the movement we need from the nose. We just need the same thing for the back as well, and those ones are going to be in a slightly different place. Again, as long as we're paying attention to where the center of mass is, we should be receiving balanced thrust. So we're missing some thrusters, so we need, so that's forward port forward, so we need to do aft port aft. Do we have that? Oh, we do have that already. Hang on. So we do aft port up. So we know it needs to be 290 away. And again, it doesn't matter how far this way we go, as long as both sides are the same. So I guess we will stick it up there. It might be nice actually to have this one rotate as well. So we could just line that up with the bodywork like that. Okay, and then we want aft, starboard, up. So this one just needs to be the mirror of that one. So minus 150, 35, and we want it facing that way. So then we need aft, port, port, because this is going to be our sideways one. And I guess this one does need to be in line with the centre of mass, doesn't it? Yeah, so this one's an awkward one because if we are thrusting sideways and we are above or below our centre of mass, then we're going to induce roll, which we don't want to do. So it might have to be the case that we actually stick this maybe over here in the wingtip. And if we were doing that, then we could potentially put all of the RCS in the wingtip. It would certainly give it some more control authority if the leverage angle was over here. Obviously there's nothing we can do here, but this would make it a bit more nimble if the center of thrust was over here. Yeah, because these could also be positioned actually quite nicely there. So 2, 3, 7. Okay, then this one go down here like this. Okay, so that will be unfortunately named aft starboard starboard. And two more, so we got aft port down. And then aft starboard down. That's this one, aft, starboard, aft. So we got whether it's forward or aft first, then whether it's port or starboard, and then its actual direction. So just need to make sure that each one's got 4 arrows, basically. Yeah, I think we're all there. What's the best way of doing this? I suppose if we make this receive input, so we won't automatically fire the thrusters. We'll build some thruster mapping. So if we enable input. And then we want to map enhanced input to this. I guess we want the helm control inputs rather than the character movement ones. And we want basically the same ones we're using on the helm. So there's quite a bunch of mapping that needs doing here. So essentially every key press has to map to multiple thrusters, generally speaking. So if we're throttling up, then we want to do the aft ones specifically. So we want aft, port, aft, and aft, starboard, aft. And then we want to basically do that. do all of these separately as well. I'll collapse all this into a nice neat graph when we're done, but let's just get it working first. Right, so when it's completed, you want to do the opposite of this. So essentially we want to be able to keep it thrusting whilst the button's held down. And as soon as we release the button, we want it to then stop thrusting. So we'll just do a very simple on or off for now. Right, let's check that that actually works. So here's a helm chair, what I prepared earlier. Yeah, there we go. So basically when I press the plus key, it fires the rear thrusters. Obviously I don't have any other keys right now, so that's all it will do. Let's make those little arrows bigger so we can actually see what we're doing. When we press the minus key, so we want input action throttle. Why don't we have the minus version? Oh, because we've got the inverted version. Which I think is that, so okay, so if that's higher or equal to 0, and we're going to do that. The reason we have to do this is because we invert the float for a negative value. So basically, if our value is above 0, then we're going forwards. If it's below 0, then we're going backwards. Hang on, I'm going to get myself confused here. That needs to be a sequence because we want both of them on. So that's both of the aft thrusters on, and then we want both of them off as well. So we want I've messed up here somewhere. Hang on, let me get. Oh no, I haven't. No, it's there. Yes, so we don't need that twice because we've got both thrusters there. So yeah, so the value is true is that one, and the value is true is that one. So we're dealing with our positive direction. And then our negative direction would be the forward versions of this. So we want forward, port forward, that one. And then forward, starboard forward, which is that one. And then the 0 version of those. Right, I think that should do it. Assuming that's set up for 1 or -1. So sit in our helm chair. Yeah, there we go. Oh, no, it's not turning off. Not turning off. Stop. It's probably the way I've got that set up. Actually, I don't think that specifically needs to care, does it? Because it's going to be 0 either way. So, because if you're not holding the key down, you don't want any of them to be on. So we can just force them all off to be sure. That's better. Yeah. So the important thing here is that, again, because we've got the thrusters aligned exactly with the center of mass, we're able to go forwards and backwards without any kind of roll or pitch or yaw or anything. It's completely straight laterally. Any slight offset, and that would be causing us issues. Kind of need a shift modifier for the main engines, really. Right, okay, so we've got those ones working. So let's do the pitch, roll, and yaw. Basically, yes. So I'm using the plus and minus keys on my numpad at the moment, and the way, again, the way it's set up in Unreal is that you have a negative value to that, so you can use the same key for 2 different things, or the same input action for 2 different things. So the minus key fires the -1 version of this. You could set it up as 2 separate input actions, which for sanity's sake I might end up doing, but yeah, either way works really. Although using a single input action means we can have it as a forward and backwards throttle with 0 in the middle, because if we were using an analog throttle, one of those ones that can go forwards and backwards, then this is what we'd use for that. So we want, hopefully we've got pitch, yeah, so let's do that one next. So for pitching, we need the same thing as before, because again we're using the same input action for both. We're going to have to fire 4 thrusters. Hello. Random kitty attack. So I'm going to have to work out which one of these is down. I think +1 is probably down and -1 is probably up. But that could very well be the other way. I got a 50-50 chance of getting it right, so you can guarantee I'll get it wrong first time. No, please don't sit on the keyboard. It's not a chair. Right, so if we do the down ones then. So we want forward port down, and then forward starboard down, and then if the front ones are firing down, then the rear ones need to fire up. So we want aft port up, and then aft starboard up. So we've got the nose is firing down and the aft is firing up, which means that should give us our pitch control. Again, there's a 50-50 chance that I've got this the wrong way around, but it's easy to invert if necessary. So the opposite with that then would be forward port up, and then forward starboard up, which means we then need aft port down, and then aft starboard down. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Aft starboard down. Okay, I won't bother with the turning it off one yet. We'll just see whether or not we've got the right way round. Right, so if I press 8 for pitch down, yeah, it goes the other way. So I did get it the wrong way round, but as a test, that's good. It means that it's spinning exactly around the center of mass, even though those thrusters are offset slightly from one another. So that's a good thing. I just need to find the right blueprint. Right, so all I need to do basically is that, because I got them the wrong way around. Not surprising, given it was a 50-50 chance. Okay, and then type around the cat. It's very difficult to stop moving it. Like extreme game dev. Reminds me of that fad, extreme ironing, where people would put ironing boards like on top of mountains and things. I used to love those. Oh, cat has run off. She suspects food might be on the offering. Right, so this should pitch down now. Oh no, helps if I sit in the right chair, doesn't it? Right, so pitch down. No, no, that's not what I wanted. Oh, I know what I did. I forgot to set these to 0. Yeah, feline-based delays. Right, okay, there we go. So we now have pitch up and down. So we are actually inducing a little bit of movement there. And I imagine that's because the forward thrusters are thrusting outward slightly, and the rear thrusters are firing straight up and down, basically. It's creating a slight differential in the amount of energy they're imparting on the pitch. So like the more it's like when you're on a skateboard and you're like I don't even know the word for it, when you're kind of like zigzagging on a skateboard from side to side to speed up. It's kind of that effect. I think if I was to make them the same angle, that would stop happening. But it's not a huge amount of movement, so it doesn't necessarily need to be an issue, because you can just cancel that out. I like that it's actually going to take a reasonable amount of skill to fly these things. Like, I don't want things to be too easy to fly. Like, human skill as a pilot should count for something. Okay. Let's see whether we can do roll and yaw. So yeah, we're going to need four thrusters again for this one, because we've got 2 on each side. Hang on, we're going to need 4. So we've got those 2. Oh no, we only need 4. This one will do. We'll copy this one. So we want input action. Let's do yaw this time. So it started. Value completed. So again, I'll probably get this the wrong way around, but let's see. So to begin with, we need, hang on, so let's say we're pressing 4, so we're yawing to the left. So we want forward, starboard, starboard. And then we want aft, port, port. And then for the other way, we want forward, port. And then aft, starboard. Everyone's favourite thruster. And then, rather than connecting all those out again, we'll just set all these to 0. Okay, did I get it the right way around? Didn't. I think that's going to need a greater amount of thrust. It's interesting though that there's so little control authority from those thrusters. You'd think there'd be more than that. I guess it's because there are double the number of thrusters in use for pitching than there is for yaw. Oh, hang on. Now it's working. Oh, that's weird. Perhaps it was the physics must have been like stuck or something. Because now it is fine. Although I have got them inverted, of course. So it needs you to remove fingers completely when changing sides. If you happen to press the opposing direction whilst not letting go of the first direction, they stay on, which is not ideal. Managed to induce some roll there from somewhere. Okay. I'm going to clamp the maximum rotation speeds as well. Otherwise they will just rotate faster and faster and faster. Right, so I got those the wrong way around, of course. So let's just swap them over. Okay, now for roll control, we're going to need 4 thrusters again. So we'll just grab those ones. Okay, so for rolling, yes, Kaji. So the command console, the CLI that we're going to be building, will allow you to do that. So you can bring up the console window, connect to an individual thruster and tell it just to start firing at, say, 10% power, and then it will continue to fire at 10% power until you tell it not to. That also makes it scriptable, so you could do, fire X thruster for 10 seconds, wait 3 seconds, and then fire another thruster for 5 seconds. And using that script, you could literally script maneuvers for things like, say, a flip and burn. So you could actually work out how long you need to fire the thrusters for in order to face the opposite direction, and obviously then cancel out that thrust. And you could script that as a predefined maneuver. So you could maybe flip, thrust backwards, flip again, and end up behind an enemy ship as a tactical maneuver. But obviously we need to get the CLI working first, and then we can start thinking about CLI. Yeah, like a CLI macro, basically, exactly that. So you simply script the commands that you would type into the CLI with delays in them, obviously, as needed. And basically you've got yourself a script at that point. Yeah, but I'm people would absolutely come up with some really crazy maneuvers doing that, I'm sure. Right, rolling. So we need forward port up, which we've got. And then we would have aft port up. Aft port up. And then we'd have forward starboard down. And then aft starboard down. Okay, and then in the opposite direction, we'd have forward starboard down. So if it's forward port up, forward starboard down, yeah, and then hang on, that doesn't make sense. We wouldn't use that twice. So forward port up, aft port up. So that's the 2 port thrusters going up, which means the 2 starboard thrusters need to go down. Okay. So forward port up. Right, so we need forward port down, wouldn't we? Because it's the opposite of that one. So forward port down, aft port down. And then the opposite here. So forward starboard up. And then aft starboard, aft starboard up here. Forward starboard down becomes forward starboard up. Aft starboard down becomes aft starboard up. Yeah. And then because I can't be bothered to do that again, I'll just copy it and change the ones to zeros. Let's try that. Potentially. I mean, if you were to put a record button on the helm, and then just have it record your exact inputs and the exact length of time that you were inputting them for, then it would be easy enough to transfer those inputs to a script. Because all it's doing is saying, you press this button for this long, then you waited, and then you pressed this button for that long. That should be easy enough to do. So yeah, you could record your actions in addition to just writing them into a script. Right, did we get the roll? Oh, we did. We got it the right way around for once. Oh. What was I saying about needing to be a good pilot? Right, let's... Oh, it's hard to fly when it's facing you. Right, let's see if I can bring it on over. Oh, that's what we haven't done. Up and down. Oh, we haven't done lateral movement either, have we? So, yeah, so in addition to pitch, roll and yaw, of course, we also need to do up, down and lateral side to side. But yeah, actually, this is surprisingly manoeuvrable, given where we've decided to put the RCS thrusters. They're not terrible where they are, which is, yeah, quite surprising, but a pleasant surprise. I mean, you still gotta fight the thing a bit. Oh, it's gonna go through the floor. No. And we've lost control. I wonder if it's got collisions with the Caravella. Let's find out. Oh, it does. Yeah, we've definitely got some mass offsets to work out there, because that shuttle should not have bonked the Caravella as far as it did. Yeah, I don't know where it's gone now. Oh, there we are. There's one thing I could never get the hang of with like a remote control airplane. It's having the controls inverted when it's coming towards you. Yeah, okay, so we'll just forget that shuttle. That shuttle's lost. Right, so did I set up an input action for lateral movement? Don't think I did. What haven't we used yet? Guess I could use the cursor keys for that for now. So we've got pitch roll, yaw, throttle, translate up and translate left. So okay, we do have them, and that is indeed the cursor keys. Right, nice. That makes life a bit easier. So left, right, so we'll copy both of these because left and right is going to just require 2 on each side. Up and down is going to require all 4. Okay, so if we do the translate left one first. So left, which means we want to fire the right thrusters. So we want forward, starboard, starboard, and aft, starboard, starboard. And then if we're going the other way, we want forward, port, port, and then aft, port, port. And then we'll duplicate those for the purposes of laziness. Let's give that a quick whirl. Yeah, so interestingly, the yaw doesn't work until you've at least moved the shuttle a little bit, which is weird. Let's look into why that is. Okay, yeah, there we go. So we have our lateral movement. So we should be able to, using my pinky for the throttle, be able to kind of strafe that round. Yeah, hugging the donkey. If anyone's seen the Orville, you'll know what I mean. Ah, wrong key. Oh no, it's all gone a bit wrong. Yeah, so, okay, that works. And I pressed the wrong button. Okay, last one then, which is up and down. So translate up. Okay, so we need all the downs. So we want forward, port, down, forward, port, down, forward, starboard. Oops, let's not do that. Forward, starboard, down, and then aft, port, down, and aft, starboard, down, and then the opposite of that. So forward, port, up, forward, port, up, forward, starboard, up. Where is it? There. Aft, port, up, aft, starboard, up. Okay. And just set all these to 0 again. Right, and that should give us all the translation needs. So if I want to go up, oh, I should sit in the chair first. So if I want to go up, it should fire the bottom ones, and then down those ones. Great. So I think for environments where gravity is a thing, we will have the shuttle automatically fire its landing thrusters. So similar to how it does in Elite, it will hover for you above the ground, and then you can just thrust up and down as you want to, and it will automatically just keep you in a hover. But when you're in space, obviously you won't be using those thrusters anyway, and it'll be fully Newtonian. Because otherwise you're going to have to manage, obviously, the hover thrusters in addition to everything else. Which might not necessarily be a bad thing, but we'll see how that goes. Maybe we'll have that as a flight assist option. Yeah. Yes, the shuttle bay will have big old doors. The force field is just there for convenience, really. So yes, you'll be able to close the doors on the shuttle bay, and we're going to have it so that the force field is basically part of the doors. So as the doors open, the force field is going to stretch between them like bubblegum. But yes, there will be a force field so that you can open it without having to like completely evacuate the shuttle bay every time a shuttle comes in and out. Like not having a force field would obviously be more realistic, but this is one of those, for gameplay reasons, it's kind of necessary. It just makes life awkward otherwise. Faux flame, it probably will do, to be honest. Hang on, let's put that to the test a minute. Stop. Completely pressed the wrong button. Yeah, it does that. So all we need to do, really, to fix that is to simply rotate these ones as well, which is easily done. So if we make sure that all of the thrusters that are angled are all angled the same way, that should hopefully fix that from happening. Perhaps if I press the right button. Okay. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, so we still can't yaw yet. Yeah, now we can. So it's almost like the yaw thrusters are not waking up the mesh for some reason. I shall have to investigate that one. Yeah, in all honesty, this is like surprisingly flyable. It's yeah, it's pretty stable. I mean, if you were actually flying it from like a first-person perspective, it would obviously be easier. But yeah, don't think you'd have any issues navigating about with this. I guess in terms of atmospheric flights, obviously those little wingtips aren't going to do much for you on the whole, other than just making it slightly more efficient in atmosphere. So I imagine with the VTOL thrusters underneath, I imagine it's going to fly somewhat like a helicopter. It's probably going to have that kind of feel to it. I mean, it already feels kind of helicopter-like, to be honest. Oh, you gotta be careful with it, it gets twitchy. Yeah, I think we will tweak. We won't do it tonight, but when we do like the final, like polished version of this, I think we're gonna have to tweak some of these thrusters so they're not all thrusting with the same amount of thrust, because like it's much easier to roll than it is pitch, which is surprising actually, because the roll thrusters are further from the center of mass, so you'd expect them to be a little bit more responsive, but it really likes rolling. Okay. All good. Right, so now that we have kind of established that yes, our thruster placements are going to work, then we can kind of continue the build with that rationale in mind. Yes, Andrew, it is in fact the only way you'll be exploring derelict ships, and everything you can land on will need to have some way of landing and getting out. So even on a derelict, it's going to have some kind of docking bay, shuttle bay that you can land in. So we won't be doing direct umbilical docking. It'll be a case of you'll land in a structure of some kind and get out on foot through the ramp at the back. If you're landing on something that has no atmosphere, then of course you'll need to use spacesuits, and we'll have some kit lockers in the back so that you can suit up before going out. And then obviously the idea would be to restore power and restore atmosphere, and then you can take the suits off. But yes, that's very much the idea. Take a shuttle over to whatever it is you want to explore, get out of the shuttle, and explore on foot. It won't be super realistic. We're not talking like X-Plane or Microsoft Flight Simulator levels of atmospheric wing simulation. So it's going to be, I suppose the best way you could do it is like arcadey atmospheric flight. So different craft will have a different handling feeling in atmosphere. But that's probably something more that we decide as opposed to the physics model deciding, because once you start trying to simulate physics in terms of atmospheric flight, that's a whole nother layer of complication on top of what we're already doing. So yeah, I'd say arcadey atmospheric flight. I mean, obviously we don't want it to be like ridiculous, so we want it to feel as authentic as possible, but we won't be calculating lift on surfaces, put it that way. Okay, so what were we doing? Yeah, we were messing about with these tanks. So first order of business is to get rid of those tanks because they're no longer needed. Did nothing else connect to them? No. Yeah. So tanks can go. We'll keep the structural framework though, because we're going to need that. And I suppose we will do something along the lines of that. Because the idea is that we're going to start building out the kind of the structural ribbing of the shuttle. By moving the fuel tanks to COPVs rather than filling the wings, that does mean, why is it doing that? It does mean we can reclaim that horizontal space across there. Which means we don't need that. That can be horizontal now. Just gives us a bigger area to put stuff. Yeah, and then we'll use the wings for. I'm thinking batteries. I think batteries are probably the best thing there, and obviously we'll have our RCS thrusters in there as well. Yeah, those are the VTOL thrusters we were talking about earlier. So we're going to have a couple under here. So a lot of this nose section is going to be taken up with the RCS thruster hardware and 2 VTOL thrusters coming out at an angle there somewhere. And the same on the back here. So underneath the main engines, we're going to have another engine poking down through there. It is the only way. Yeah, which means we then have to think about where we are putting other stuff. So under the floors is the perfect place for our tankage. We also need a reactor, and we need to decide on the size and shape of that. Ideally, the reactor needs to be accessible from inside the shuttle, ideally. But we don't really have a lot of space for such, unless we extend it by maybe one more half-meter segment, and we place the reactor on one side. And then we have maybe the gravity generator on the other side. Let's sort out the alignment here a minute. Why is that side offset to the other side? That's better. Just make sure that this is aligned on both sides a minute, because we had weirdness afoot. So that one's 126.5 and 126.5, yeah, so they're fine. So we kind of need to also work out where our structural framework actually is. And I think we'll do a line down the middle and a line down this edge. It seems to be the sensible place to put it. Like I said in the last stream, we won't finalize the structural ribbing until we've subdivided it and really finalized what the shell's going to be like on the outside, because the ribbing needs to kind of hug the shell. So we'll do that first, but just as a rough idea, so we know where we're putting things. If we draw that in there. That's including floor panel on top, so that would be the structural bit. Okay, so that's our bottom structure, and then now we can work out, where the lightning holes go in terms of fitting in all those COPVs that we need. So we can get rid of, not that, get rid of that. Yeah, so if we call that our edge. So we do that all the way through, and that gives us our underfloor cavity then, which we can put stuff in. So we would need to do that for each of these. Okay, so the question is, why is that down there? Assuming where it's drawn its path through, yeah, it's missed out that bit, so that's fine. Just got to make sure that we line them up accordingly. So what does that give us room-wise? 22.3. Wondering whether we actually go slightly bigger with that. Of course, the middle's not where I want it to be. More like it. So something SketchUp can do is tell you the internal volume of a thing, which is kind of useful. Make that group a minute. So it should say, yeah, so that's 0.03 meters cubed. And as we make that bigger, it should give us a better idea for the internal volume. Yeah, so if we were to make those our fuel tanks, what's it saying now? So, yeah, 0.09 meters cubed. We can work out what that is in literage. Yeah, but we can have those underneath there as our fuel tanks. And then we can have the same in front of that as coolant tanks. Okay, yeah, so we dedicate basically all of the underfloor area for holding tanks. And if we do them COPV style, then we know that they are like really strong pressure vessels for holding cryogenic fluids. Which means it's going to be quite a chilly floor. They're going to need some good insulation. Yeah, then we'll do the physical hardware in the cavities there. Yeah, so we need a reactor, a gravity generator, air recycling, batteries, yeah, that should do us. So if we make all these one group a minute and then explode them, that means we can adjust them together. So I'm thinking we're going to need a lot less coolant than we are fuel. Yeah. Yeah, we definitely need some shielding under there for sure. And I suppose the other factor for this is we're also going to need reactor fuel as well. So if we're going with an actual reactor on the shuttle and not have it be battery powered, then yeah, we're going to need a reactor and fuel supplies for said reactor, in addition for fuel for the engines, which does kind of lean me more towards having this one at the very least battery powered rather than having its own reactor. Because if we charge the shuttles from the main ship and give them a power reserve, then they can recharge that through solar panels if need be. So the only commodity really is the liquid fuel for the thrusters. Which in themselves are also electrical, but they still need some kind of propellant. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, well, to be honest, the hull plating could be a photosensitive cell. It doesn't necessarily have to be just hull plating. I like the idea that you need to plug something in. That would be quite cool. Although we do, obviously we have wireless charging pads for phones, so you could do something similar for the shuttles, but it would be more immersive to have to plug them in. Okay, so if we say, certainly on a shuttle that's this size, if we say that it is too small practically to support having a reactor on board, then that takes us down to the fuel cell / battery, or just basically very high density batteries. The main ship has solid state batteries anyway, so we'll do something along those lines, which means we get to have our nice kind of heatsink grills on there, which is kind of cool. Yeah. Hey, TN. Yes, thank you. All good. Yeah, well, there's going to be different classes of shuttle. Just to remind everyone with the shuttle bay, if I grab that again. You would. Sometimes you've just got to plug it in. But I like the idea that when you return the shuttle back to the main ship, you have to plug in fuel and power lines. So the idea here is that these are like small maintenance bays for the shuttles. So this area back here is going to have all the gubbins that you need for maintaining and managing shuttles. So we'd have to have maybe on each pillar or something, like a roll of cable that you can pull out and plug in to the shuttles. So you'd have to plug them into both power and fluids, and it will fill them back up. And then we just need to balance, obviously, how long those things last. Because what we don't want is for shuttles running out of fuel and power to be a constant annoyance. We want it to be a factor, but not something which is constantly getting in the way. Yeah, so we won't have them constantly running out. You should be able to fly around a planetary surface and spend a good few hours doing stuff before you need to start thinking about refueling it somewhere. But yeah, so as you can see here, with these smaller transport shuttles, we can fit loads of them in the shuttle bay. When it comes to transporting vehicles down to the surface, which is definitely something we want to do, obviously those shuttles are going to have to be quite a bit bigger. And maybe those can have their own reactors on board and be a little bit more capable as a vessel, as opposed to these things, which are literally just a bus for getting from A to B. They're space taxis, basically. Yeah, so I would imagine, given how big something like a dune buggy would be, you're looking at something probably twice the size of this shuttle, with its own garage at the back where you park vehicles, in addition to a small seating area. So yeah, you're looking at easily twice the size of this one, I'd say. So we'll probably have, at least on the Magellan, maybe 4 to 6 normal sized transport shuttles, a few of the bigger ones, and of course utility vehicles as well, because we need like little repair craft, little work bee type things that you can get in and fly around and do repairs with, little JCBs with grabby arms that you can do repairs on. But yeah, so there will definitely be more than one shuttle. Yeah, I like the idea that these things are used for transporting people from planetary surfaces up to ships, between stations in orbit. Probably going from Earth to the moon is perhaps a little bit beyond their capability, I would have thought. I would have thought that these shuttles in particular are very much kind of low orbit vehicles, where you go from orbit to surface or between objects that are in the same orbit, not making transfers to different orbiting bodies. They just don't. I just don't think they're big enough to be able to do that sort of mission profile. But that's fine, because that's not their job. Right. Okay. So I suppose one of the questions is, how big do the RCS thrusters actually need to be on the inside? Because that's going to determine like how they affect the wing. I suppose, given what they are, which is a Vasmir engine, let's see if I can find a cutaway, because that would be helpful. This is going to be like the world's worst image. Yeah, looks like it. Okay, so pretty sure this was a Vasmir. Yeah, so basically you are making and accelerating plasma, and that's the thrust that you're making. You're basically, it's a plasma rocket. Let's see if I can find a better picture of one. What about this one? That's a bit better. Yeah, so this is basically what it is we're building. So we inject gas, turn that gas into really, really hot, fast-moving plasma, and then eject that out the back. Now, the version of it we're using in the game is kind of like a sci-fi improved version where we're sacrificing nozzle velocity for actual thrust, because these don't have a lot of thrust. They have a lot of velocity, but not a lot of thrust. So we're kind of inverting that equation a little bit by sacrificing one for the other. So it explains why at sublight the ships will have a cap on how fast they can go, but they're able to use technology like this for high thrust maneuvers. So yeah, so the RCS thrusters and the main engines are basically the same technology, just the RCS is just a scaled down version of it. The important thing being is that they're electrical in nature. So yes, they have a gas as a propellant, but they're still an electrical engine. We wanted everything to be electrically based. Yeah, I think you can use any inert gas with them. I was thinking argon, but yeah, we'll look into that. Yeah, so if we I guess if we build one, in fact, if we build one out of this, so we can make that a component a minute. Take this out here, out of the way. Right, let's sculpt this thing into an actual engine. See if I can find a picture of an actual, a non-diagrammatical one. No, most of the pictures I can find are all just diagrams, basically. None of them are particularly useful. Let's just go with our own imagining of one, shall we? So if we can fit it into this general area, and then what we can do is once we've worked out the size of it, then we can scale that down for the RCS. No, the engines won't thrust vector because that's too hard. Yes, we don't need the the nozzles out the back to be quite as big as they are. And I guess what we build for this, obviously the Magellan and the Caravella have like much scaled up versions as their main engines. So it'd be nice to kind of get the look and feel of our flavour of Vasmir, so that we can use it where we need it. Suppose we're going to need magnetic coils for heating and accelerating the plasma, and then this nozzle is essentially magnetic as well, because what we don't want is the plasma touching anything, because that'll eat away at the engine itself. So it needs to be magnetically constricted throughout. So it means we need lots of magnetic coils. If we say, no, that's probably a bit too big actually. So if that was our plasma formation area, yeah, so that's basically the volume of the plasma. So we'd need an injector at one end and a bunch of coils. Hello, cheese. Second cat of the evening. Actually, I'm going to component this up so that we can modify it all at once. Just comparing this against a couple of the other designs that I've seen. So So to make sure we get the all the different components in. Okay, so we need a helicon coupler. No idea what that is. Hang on, let's grab that a minute. So I don't know what a helicon radio frequency is, so I'll need to look that up. Okay, so we're compressing the plasma stream here with a giant magnet, and then we're heating it here with this ion cyclotron heating unit, and obviously that then creates the 2 million Kelvin exhaust. So don't stand in front of one of them. And I don't know what a helicon coupler is. Hang on. It's a type of plasma, apparently. I have never heard of it before, so I will have to do some research on that. It's one of the really fun things about the project, actually, is when we're researching this stuff and trying to build something which is analogous to real world technology, and obviously, you know, with a bit of a sci-fi twist to fit the needs of the game. But at least it's kind of, you know, it's based in practical science. Ooh, this might do us. What's this picture? I think this might be another piece of technology doing something completely different, using a similar process. Yeah, I don't think that's the same thing. Okay, I'll use that as our base though. Right, let's start with our fuel injector. And if we do this kind of in 2D, in fact, yeah, let's do it in 2D. So if we grab that line, get rid of all that, pop that back. Okay, so if that's our actual formation chamber, yeah, so we'll take it in from there, and then we'll constrict that halfway along, which means that obviously needs some thickness. And then we need a flange because you always need a flange. Okay, so that's basically where the plasma's being injected. And if we flip that around, I suppose we'll group this up separately. Then we'll have to make a component on the end here. Maybe take that out a little bit further. So if we make that our injector hardware there, and we'll improve that a little bit. Once we've defined the like the 2D diagram version of this, then we'll extrude it and make it 3D. But I just want to get a feel for like the stages of the engine. So according to this, yeah, so we have our fuel injector, so we'd have some kind of valve on the back here. So that's where our fuel line goes in. And that gets injected down into here. We'll curve these edges to make nice smooth flanges with some bolts around them. And then we need to worry about the coils. So this one has one big coil, but I think we'll perhaps go for something slightly smaller. So if we make that our initial formation, and then we need to build our helicon coupler. So it's difficult to see that from the outside. Yeah, so the gas comes in there. And the magnets basically keep that in one place. And then the helicon coupler makes what they're calling cold plasma. I'm assuming it's not cold plasma, it's just not as hot as it would be. We then compress that, and then we do that ICH coupler, and that's how we create our energized plasma. Okay, so we need a compression there, basically. So we're going to try and keep that balanced. Yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll make this in, I guess, 4 pieces, and we'll bolt those together with flanges to keep it kind of chunky and techy looking. So those would be the initial coils, so they'd wrap all the way around. So this is where the helicon coupler would be. Right, and then this, I guess from, let's say, halfway there. So that's 5 to there. So if we restrict that basically to about half of its surface area. Then we get to use a Bezier curve. Hang on, let's get rid of that because we need that middle anchor. And then another flange. And then we need a honking great big magnet for the compression. It kind of uses like a magnet there. Yeah, actually I might need to keep this bit straight and then have the compression section with its own area. So if I do that, then we can have that with a magnet wrap around it. Ah, thank you, AJ. Yeah, that sounds about what we're doing. I'll refactor this into a much less edgy curve because there's way too many edges on that. To leave enough room for a curve there, so I think what we'll do is if we pop that up there a minute. Actually, yeah, 4 faces should do it. It's going to be so small that I'm not going to see it anyway. And we'll do the same over here as well. Third cat of the evening. You probably won't see this one because he's not very friendly. Yeah, basically. So this would be our helicon area here, and then we do our compression stage here, and then we flip that on the other side. In fact, let's copy this out. So I think the expansion stage is actually quicker, as in it expands more quickly than it contracts. So if we move that over there a minute, kind of need to draw this out a bit. So right now that's 10, so let's double the length of that. Going to try and make that slightly fancier, but I think I will just copy it down. Try and space these out the same distance. Just to keep it nice and balanced. And then we'll, I guess, maybe double the width of them. Maybe not that big. Yeah, to be honest, maybe just go with 3 there. And then these ones will just step down a little bit. Actually, if we step them down exactly to there. means that needs to come in a bit to there. Oh, and a bit more. Okay, and if we make these unique and we get rid of, say, those ones. So we know the gap from there to there should be 3. Then we can line that up to there. So it's expanding more quickly than it contracted. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so this side is the helicon coupler, and this is the, does it say what the compression side is? No, it doesn't even say what that is. Yeah, it just says it goes through magnetic fields. That's not very helpful. But this is where the bulk of the heating happens. So if we take that, yeah, I'm thinking we should wrap something around this, because this is supposed to be like that whole RF antenna thing. So if we say 1 centimeter there, 1 centimeter there. Grab a copy of them. Yeah, something like that. So that's our what was it? That's our helicon decoupler, and then at the other end we got our ICH that heats it all up, and then the nozzle basically. Probably condense this down a little bit, maybe. Okay, and then we just bolt the engine bell onto there. True, actually. Yeah, see, given how chemical rockets work, and the fact that the combustion chamber is restricted through a small opening to increase velocity, you'd expect something similar here, but like looking at the diagram, it's not constricting it. You get the initial constriction in the middle there, but from that point, all it's doing is it's heating it up. It's not reconstricting the plasma flow, which is interesting. Yeah. So in order to turn this into something, what we need to do is grab that. That's not enough faces. I'll try it with 32. It's a small device, so when you're looking at it from a character's perspective, it doesn't need to be super high poly. So we'll grab that circle. Basically gives us that. Actually, that's delete all these a minute. It's going to mess us up otherwise. Okay. Then we'll position our bolts around there. So we're going to need some little mounting lugs on here for obviously holding in the magnetic coils, because they're not just like there by magic. Yeah, I think what I'll do before I go mad with it all, I'll grab a copy of the 2D version in case we need to make adjustments. Let's just move these over here somewhere and make them all unique. Oh, thank you, Max. Much appreciated. Okay, so I think there's the beginnings of the inner gubbins, and then what we'll do is we'll have some external piping running along for the coolant flow. Obviously each one of these coils needs to be cooled. Ideally we've got like superconducting magnets. So we need the lugs for holding them on. We need the pipes going along for the cooling feed and back again out the other side. And then we need power running into them, and also the radios as well. Yeah. So these are, yeah, the bolts are at different radiuses. So if I just, for now, I just make that a component of it. Seem to have made this part of the main thing by accident. To be honest, they're probably a bit on the small side, but never mind. So we want to put some there. Some there. Already got one there. they'll have more than 4. I'm going to spin them in a circle in a sec. So we just grab these ones a minute. So if we say 30 degrees times 12, 6, 8, 10, oh yeah, 11 was right. So yeah, 30 degrees times 11 gives us that. Yeah, feels about right. Same thing again, 30 degrees times 11. Okay, starting to look like something at least. How does that look in there? Yeah, starting to look like an engine. Yeah, so you can see like that's the size of a person, so it's quite a small contraption. Thank you, Gadji. What we could do actually, because we've got a line here already that we can use for building our coolant run across the top there. Let's just redo our nozzle bit at the end. Oh yeah, then I inverted it, didn't I? Of course I did. Right, okay, so there's our flow. Oh, I forgot to make it unique. No matter. It's the line we need, so if I just drag that down. That should work quite nicely, actually. Let's move that back out of the way again. I forgot to move that one down. Might have to do that ring again. It should be closer than that. That's why it's kind of pinching a bit there. Okay, yeah, so that will be our coolant in. And if we component that up, and we've also got coolant out as well. Yeah, I think that's what the diagram shows. If I can find it, I think I've closed it. Oh no, I didn't close it. Where did I put it? There. Yeah, so it's got a much chunkier magnet in the middle where the constriction happens. So yeah, we could potentially thicken a couple of these if need be. We need some engine mounts on this as well, so we'll have to add those. Yeah, sure. Yeah, we need some mounting points, obviously, to mount this inside the ship. So, looking at where the frame goes. Yeah, if we have some framework structure between the ribbing bits, and I might add like an insert in there, and that's where it mounts. I suppose realistically this would be inside an engine cowling anyway, but we'll keep it exposed because it's prettier that way. So the idea is when you open one of these panels and you look behind the panel, then that's kind of the view you're greeted with behind the panel, which should look quite cool. For sure. Right, let's make a nozzle. We grab that so that we've got the flange bit. Yeah, exactly that. I might actually remove one ring from the two longer sections to make the engine overall a little bit shorter. Yeah, then we need to do something with this rim because this is supposed to be magnetic as well, so we need to make sure that we are properly constricting this, properly like protecting the nozzle from the plasma flow. Yeah, I think I'd be tempted to maybe just do some coils on the outside of this. And obviously we need some detailing on the inside as well. We could also do something along the lines of something like that. Just thought of a better way of doing this. There is some method in my madness here. I didn't want to remove the end of that actually. Hang on, that needs to come back out again. Okay, so if we remove that and that. Okay, and on the other side. See whether this works. Okay, not terrible. Yeah, the active cooling is what's coming from these pipes up here. So this is liquid helium that's being flowed through the magnetic coils, which makes them superconducting. Not sure about the ribs on the back. Maybe we'll have that as like they do with real rocket engines, where they run like coolant through the middle of them, or something like that. No, I don't know what that bit does. Thanks, Dangermass. Much appreciated. If you mean this bit be rounded, I guess technically these would be a housing, because obviously you need to run the coolant through it. Still need to make that one smaller, so we don't have that clipping. Thank you. Yeah, I guess the one last thing we have to do is connect that up. Yeah, because we'll have our main gas feed coming in there, and obviously the tanks are all going to have to connect up to some kind of a manifold. We'll have 3 on one side feeding this engine, 3 on the other side feeding the other engine, and similar for the RCS. So we'll have a smaller version of this at the front here for the braking thruster. So we need to scale that down and turn it around for that one, which means I guess the commodity supplies are going to have to come up the middle here somewhere. Oh yeah, yeah, we need pumps and chillers as well, don't we? So this coolant loop, the idea, and I'll round that off, the idea is that it's flowing coolant into the coils and then back out on the other side, and that then needs to go into a chiller to recondense it back into cryogenic liquid to go back into the storage tanks there. So that wiring, or the pipe work for that, needs to come around and do its thing. But yeah, I think other than building the tank on the end there, I guess it's like a pre-holding tank to ensure like a constant flow. Yeah, I think I will remove one of the rings from each of the long sections just to make it a little bit shorter, so it's not taking up quite as much room there. So obviously the design we're building for the main engines also need to work as RCS thrusters. So we need a micro version of this, maybe without as many coils, to somehow fit in here. I'm wondering whether or not we have maybe a single unit that has multiple nozzles and some kind of manifold that is able to release and shut off gas flow per thruster nozzle. I'll have a look at that. But yeah, so there we go. That's where we've got to this evening. We have ourselves a Vasmir rocket engine and about half of the the plumbing that's going to be needed for it. Yeah, I think that's going to look quite cool once it's all up and running and we've got nice blue plasma flowing out of it. Okay, well, have a good rest of the week, everyone, and I shall see everyone on Friday for more of the same. And I think on Friday's stream we'll try and get a lot more of the internal gubbins done, and then we can start working on the actual interior modelling itself. Get the floors, the walls, the dashboard, and all that stuff in there, and start to turn this into something we can actually get in and fly, which would be nice. But yes, progress has been made. All right, have a good one, everyone, and I shall see you on Friday. Bye for now.